Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to your Friday edition of the Blood Red podcast, brought to you by the Liverpool Echo. Once again, I'm your host, Theo Squires. I'm getting pretty used to this now, aren't I? We might as well just sack Joe off and give it to me permanently.
I was just about to say, yeah.
This is 5 in a row.
You're the caretaker, but you're getting results, so you're in the running for the top job now.
If you're listening, you'll know who's next to me, but I'll introduce him anyway. We have our LFC correspondent, both home and away, Paul Gorst. How are you, Gorsty?
Yes, good. Back on duty today at the Access Centre. Been a busy day, hasn't it? We've been in Anfield. Well, you've been in Anfield. I've been in Kirby. We've had quite a fair bit going on, but what you'd expect when the next three games are Premier League, Champions League, Carabao Cup final. There's
three finals.
Yeah, three finals indeed, yeah.
And no Ian Doyle today, as you can tell if you're watching live or just watching this on YouTube later on. He's on a well-earned day off following his midweek endeavours in Paris, reporting on Liverpool's amazing smash and grab really against Paris Saint-Germain. So we've had to grab in Richard Garnett to sub in for...
Had to.
We've wanted to. We've got you to sub in for a
super sub. This is like bringing Elliot off the bench.
Thought you'd increase the budget, or just wanted a younger version of Ian. I don't know.
But yeah, we've grabbed Rich to sub in, and fingers crossed he smashes it. There you can see what I was doing there: smash and grab and smash.
Well, I like what you've done there. Yeah, it's nice to be here, Theo. I think it's the first time I've done an in-studio pod since the old sort of post-COVID era when it was all Google Hangouts and that. So nice little studio. It's pretty much how I'd imagine your bedroom to look, I think.
Don't get used to it because we're moving to the other side of the office, I think, in a few weeks' time. Producer Ian has to tell us how that's going to look. Is it going to be exactly the same, Producer Ian? Our room is going to move over there. Oh, yeah, we're moving studio. We're moving studio. So how's it going to look? Is it the exact same setup? No, that's going to be different. Okay, so keep an eye out on that. We are going to look slightly different in a few weeks' time. Fingers crossed.
Or like a perm or something.
I can grow one.
Mullet.
But yeah, as Gorsty said, we've got plenty to get through today. So we will start with the biggest of big questions. And this one is for you, Rich. Are you on board with Nord?
Well, when I surf the internet, security is always a high concern of mine. And if I like to pretend I'm in America, I always like to ensure I'm using a VPN.
That is a much more professional answer than I was expecting. I was hoping to trip you up to see if you're watching along here.
This is where the budget's gone.
So yeah, Rich obviously has been paying attention. He's been watching. He knows we're sponsored by Nord. And if you're a regular viewer, you know what we do now. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box. We are live on YouTube, as I've already mentioned, so get your questions in. I've actually had one on Instagram in the DMs this week, so that's a new way we can get questions in.
Is it pod-friendly?
Yeah, it was actually. We will be getting to it. It's from a long-time listener called Morten Helberg from Norway. Don't worry, Morten, if you are tuning in, we'll get to it later in the episode. It's a good question, but I just want to talk about PSG first, if that's okay. So, gents, PSG, what a win that was then.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we were expecting, I think we said on Monday's pod that, certainly I was anyway, that probably expecting one of the toughest games of the season for Liverpool. But that was by far and away the most difficult they've had. Even, you think of the games they've lost, the meaningful games they've lost, at least, Nottingham Forest was a little bit of a counter-attacking win for them, wasn't it? Callum Hudson-Odoi with the winning goal in a game that Liverpool dominated. So not too dissimilar to the one that Liverpool have achieved in Paris. And yeah, first half in particular, they were all over the shop, weren't they, really? Alisson comes to the rescue a couple of times, get a bit lucky with the offside call from Kvaratskhelia. I don't quite see the outrage with Konate on Barcola. I'm sure we'll come on to it a bit more, but I think he was offside anyway, had that been given, which hasn't really been spoken about. But yeah, second half, I thought Liverpool defended much better, much more collectively. Trent in particular, I thought was really good down that side and sort of restricted PSG to speculative efforts. And Alisson still called into action a couple of times, isn't he, from Kvaratskhelia again. And what's his name? Is it Desire? Desire Doué, who come off the bench as well. So yeah, a brilliant performance from Alisson in particular. 9 saves in total. I think about 3 or 4 of them were probably world class.
A record, wasn't it, for a Liverpool goalkeeper?
Yeah, and he spoke to BT or TNT rather after the game, didn't he? And he sort of said that was the performance of his life. So he knew how good he'd been. Arne Slot called him the world's best at full time. I think Harvey Elliott said something similar. And this is what you've got when you've got a goalkeeper of his quality. He's really stood up and showcased that when it was really needed. And I think now that has shown that Liverpool can, okay, you don't want to be relying on a goalkeeper to pull off a performance like that every game, but I think almost there's like a little bit of a blueprint to being able to defend and keep out these top sides. I think Liverpool should take plenty of encouragement from it, really. I've seen loads of people suggest that it might be considered a concern for Liverpool, but you're not going to dominate every game, and when you're up against it and you're under the cosh, I think they showed that they can really dig in and defend and come away with, I mean, we didn't really deserve a draw, but you would have said that was a really impressive draw for them, a big one. But they've won the game and now they're in the driving seat for the place in the quarterfinals.
And Rich, it's one where watching that first half, I think we'd all agreed it was pretty shaky defensive performance. But the longer the game goes on, you're thinking this could become instead one of the great European knockout away days. Like that's what it relies on sometimes, the nitty gritty, keeping it tight, getting that clean sheet, taking your chance. Like it's a throwback to the glory days in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I've got to be honest and say I think I probably underestimated PSG a little bit heading into this match. I had a few people saying, we've finished top of the Champions League phase and we haven't had much of a return on that in terms of the draw. I think even the manager said he would have preferred to have got Benfica. And initially I remember thinking to myself, well, I'm not really that worried about PSG, you know what I mean? We've topped the table, we're miles ahead in the Premier League. What have we got to worry about so much? And well, I think that was answered in that first 45 minutes, weren't they? Because this is a terrific PSG team, isn't it? I mean, the danger they've got from Kvaratskhelia and Dembele is like nothing Liverpool have had to defend against all season, really. And does ask a few questions of some of the other Premier League teams as to why some of the wide players aren't matching the output.
You just call out the entire English top flight there.
Yeah, well, I'm happy
Farmers
to do that.
League, isn't it? PSG's where it's
Except
at.
the Farmers League is now the English league, not the French one. But they were really impressive performances. Not just those two, but it was clear that they were the sort of the main two danger men. I do think Liverpool had some luck. I've always maintained that you make your own luck in football, but at the same time, there was some luck involved. The goal that was offside, by the letter of the law, is offside. I don't like that type of offside.
Yeah,
it's nothing. It's the back of a heel. You know what I mean? If we have a goal chalked out at the other end for something like that, you'd be fuming, wouldn't you? But it is the letter of the law. That's where we're at. And we might come on to discuss Kanata. I don't know. Yes, we want to just brush that under the carpet in due course. So I won't go into too much detail on that right now, but there's some fortune there. We've had the rub of the green with the referee and a second set of eyes from the VAR. So Liverpool have definitely rode the luck in that respect. But as the game's worn on, they've still had lots of shots and opportunities to have to deal with. But those chances have started to come further and further away from Alisson's penalty area, haven't they? Or certainly his 6-yard box. And that shows that Liverpool were doing something right. But right the way through the game, you could see the danger that we were in and how we weren't really able to control the game as we've been used to them doing. But the one thing we didn't seem to be doing was testing their centre-backs. And it wasn't until late on we got a real good look at, where there may be a weakness in this PSG side. And you can count on one hand the number of times you'll have heard me over the course of the season saying, I think we need Darwin Núñez here. But I genuinely did think this could be his moment to try and just see, just unsettle him and see what they're all about there. And well, the rest speaks for itself, didn't he? He's done what he needed to. And putting Harvey Elliott, and it is an absolute smash and grab. But it's a great Liverpool European away win. And just one other thing I wanted to say on that as well. Obviously, there's been talk at length about the goalkeeper's performance, which is absolutely outstanding. He is the best goalkeeper I've ever seen play for the club, and I've been watching since the 80s. But I did a piece this week on Liverpool's last trip to the Parc des Princes in 1997. The full video is actually on YouTube. I don't know if it's supposed to be there or not, but it is.
I seen the highlights of this the other day. Yeah. David James.
Yeah, if you I wasn't going to name the goalkeeper, but now you have. But if you watch the goalkeeping performance that night compared to the one you've seen the other night, it's worlds apart. That shows you how far we've come in terms of the recruitment and the type of players that we've got at our disposal now.
I think the thing that was frustrating me in the second half was that as the game wore on, the spaces started to open up a little bit more, and you just felt if Liverpool could have a bit of composure on the ball in midfield, there were spaces there to go and create an attack, and you think of the chance that Salah tries to put Núñez in, underhits it. There was one where I think McAllister he tries to sweep it out to his right and he overhits that and it goes off for the throw in.
There's like a couple of half ones with Jota as well when it's like coming off his toes.
There was one where he doesn't really know what to do with it and he just ends up doing nothing and he gets it pinched off him by, I think it was Vitinha or Neves, and that was the frustrating thing for me, that Liverpool had defended so well, but when they did have rare opportunities to break, they just didn't really know what they could do with the ball. And I totally agree with Rich there about Núñez coming on, and Marquinhos had his slippers on, didn't he, up until then, and then finally Núñez gives him something to think about. There was that sort of half chance where Donnarumma and Marquinhos sort of deliberate, and then Núñez tries to get in, and that was the first time Liverpool had got into PSG's penalty area really in that second half, and it just gave them something else to think about. And then when that ball goes up from Alisson, Núñez contests it, probably for the first time all night. The PSG have had to worry about that, and then Liverpool make the most of the second ball, don't they? And I think Nuno Mendes probably switches off, thinking that he's managed to ride out the storm, and Mo Salah's had one of his quietest games of the season. He's probably thinking, I've done well here, so Salah's off, I can sort of rest up now. And then Harvey Elliott creeps in around the back and scores with his first touch. So full credit to Slot, full credit to Núñez and Elliott, but I think Elliott's goal probably showcases Alisson's brilliance just as much as his own performance, if you know what I mean, because Donnarumma hadn't had a save to make, and then when he's called into action, he should make the same and doesn't, and Liverpool go on and win the game, and Alisson gets man of the match.
It's almost like he's had so little to do that maybe that sharpness or that concentration has ebbed away from him, and when the key moments come, I think he should have saved it.
And that's the sign of a top keeper, isn't it, as they always say. You know, if you listen to the thing that fascinates me when you listen to sort of ex-pros talk, when goalkeepers and strikers, when goalkeepers analyse the performance of other goalkeepers, it's always fascinating to me because they know better than anyone else. And I think just that little snapshot of Alisson making all these world-class saves, and then Donnarumma getting called into action once and not being up to the task, and then Liverpool are going to win the game. And yeah, it's a massive victory. And I don't think in any way that the tie's over, and I've seen loads of people pointing out that the tie's not over, and I don't think anyone is suggesting that it is. So, you know, Liverpool will have to be at it again next week, but having the 1-0 advantage for them coming to Anfield, it'll be a different game, but we know that PSG is still going to carry a threat.
Well, the French media, they've absolutely slaughtered Donnarumma in the aftermath of this, and they have been quite nice about Alisson, understandably so. But what makes it interesting for me, at least with Alisson, is this interesting blend of he makes it all look so easy. Like whenever there's a one-on-one, 9 times out of 10, you expect a forward to score. But whenever it's Alisson in goal, you expect it to be a save. And sure enough, that's what happened midweek. But at the same time, he's a little bit unorthodox in terms of, you know, how he was palming out some of those crosses, pushing them away. But is that unorthodox because other keepers just palm it straight back into the danger and the rebound goes in? Whereas everything he dealt with, it was out of danger again. He's just making it look so easy, and it's ridiculous how good a goalkeeper he is.
I think he's doing stuff that maybe some other goalkeepers can't. I mean, the way that he did it a couple of times, didn't he? But there was one particular one, wasn't there, late in the game where he sort of clawed a cross out. Yeah. But he's not just stopped the cross. He's managed to get the ball from a difficult angle from a goalkeeper to a distance where there's no chance of a rebound while he's still on the floor. Yeah. You know what I mean? I thought it was absolutely incredible goalkeeping. But he is, he is far and away the best goalkeeper I've ever seen. He was interviewed on CBS by Peter Schmeichel after the game, who, for me, was the best goalkeeper I'd ever seen played in the Premier League. And now there's a real challenger to that. Maybe he's even surpassed him. I don't know. Maybe he needs to win a few more things.
Maybe a Premier League or a Champions League.
Yeah. Well, or both. If you want to be greedy, but just to add more credence to the argument, basically. But yeah, what worries me is there's a bit of uncertainty, isn't there? We've got a new goalkeeper coming in, but it's not clear what it means for the other two goalkeepers, or what it even means for the goalkeeper who's coming in. It's not like, well, one of those is definitely leaving, or it's if it is, it's certainly not in the public domain. I'm not quite sure where that leaves us. But, you know, if Liverpool were to clean up with the competitions that they're still in this year, and Alisson did leave at the end of the season because he wanted something different, well, fair play to him, but it's going to be a massive loss for the team.
I think I think this might be Kelleher's last season at Liverpool. He'll come the end of the season, he'll have 12 months left on his contract, and then after that, you're really in the realms of you know, either him walking away for nothing, or you'd have to sell him in January for a real cut price fee, and Liverpool will have a figure that they want to get near for Kelleher, and almost like a one in, one out. I think, you know, if they could get a similar fee for what they bought Mamardashvili for, then Liverpool will look at that as good business, as getting in a younger keeper, you know, for the sort of safeguarding, future-proofing for the long term. And it hasn't really cost them anything because Kelleher's come and gone. So I think that is what we'll see in the summer. There's obviously been loads of interest previously, hasn't there, for Kelleher. Nottingham Forest have tried to look on a number of occasions, and I've seen this week that Chelsea are even at the table for him as well. So
he's better than anything they've got.
Yeah, I mean, Kelleher could probably play for sort of 15 or 16 of the tops, any club in the Premier League, really, couldn't he? So I'm sure he's going to start the Carabao Cup final next week, and he could even be a 3-time winner by the time he gets to the summer. So I think that is how it's shaping up, and then see what happens with Yaros and Mamardashvili coming in to give Alisson some real further competition. But yeah, I don't see a world where Liverpool sell Alisson or anything like that. Obviously, there was the Saudi Arabian interest last summer, but I think he spoke about that quite early on.
So that was Doyley rather than you.
Yeah, he spoke with Doyley and a few of our colleagues from the Nationals. It was quite a really interesting chat, actually. If we go back and sort of dig it out, he's explained that there was interest from Saudi Arabia, but he was even talking up the idea of extending his contract, and said, well, he's 32, still relatively young for a keeper, still have quite a fair few years ahead of you, can't you? So yeah, I don't think supporters are ready to fathom a world where Alisson Becker isn't their number one, and when he does stuff like he did on Wednesday night, you can understand why. And
with Alisson, he gets those injuries, and that's when you think maybe we should stick with Kelleher, maybe we should go for Mamardashvili, it's time to move on. But he's been injury-free now for a good few months. Touch wood, that continues. But we put some performance like that, that's a reminder of why Liverpool paid so much for him, why he's the best goalkeeper in the world, why it shouldn't be a conversation. When Alisson is fit, he has to start.
Yeah, and I've heard plenty of people say this season that his injury record is a problem and it might be time to move him on. But I don't think I'll be hearing anyone say that this week. No. You know what I mean? He's still got it, hasn't he? I trust him with my own child. You know what I mean? He's a very dependable figure. He has had some injury issues. We've got other players, good players in the team who've had injury issues, and you know how FSG like the stats and whatnot. They'll look at that and factor that into new contracts and decisions on players' futures and stuff like that. But whilst his output remains at the level it is, then hopefully he'll still be here for the long term.
We'll move on to some of the controversial moments. Now, I know you've already said that the non-red card, it would have been offside anyway, Gorsty, but PSG did feel aggrieved about it. We saw, was it their sporting director kicking off massively at half-time in the tunnel? Yeah. I think every pundit going said Liverpool were lucky that they avoided a red card there. As Richard said himself with the VAR as well, for the disallowed goal, it's a tight one. But are PSG whining a bit too much here?
Probably, yeah. I mean, like I say, it was offside, so I don't know. Does that get looked at before any red card gets given? Maybe.
I think it does, because wasn't that what they were looking at when Van Dijk got sent off against Newcastle? And it's like, if he's offside, you're fine. If he's not, you're gone. I think that's what the audio was when they were Premier League released.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, I don't want to dwell too much on decisions. They can go either way, can't they? And had they deemed it to be a red card, they would have had to have looked at it, and Barcola was offside. So, yeah, it was the offside really. Where Liverpool get a little bit of the look of the rub of the green, like Rich says. You know, offside is offside, but it just feels not quite in the spirit of it, doesn't it? When your heel's offside, but you know, Liverpool get away with that one, and these things happen, I guess.
Was it a semi-automated technology for Champions League?
Yeah.
So it's that. For me, I don't mind it as much because it feels like the goal line technology. It's either offside, onside, it's either over the line or it's not. But you still want benefit of the doubt to the forwards. And it was such a good goal as well. So I know the Georgian lad, I'm not going to try and say the name. You two have both done it for me enough times in this episode already. He was pretty gutted that it didn't count. But sometimes when your luck's in, your luck's in.
Yeah, I know I've already said, to me, it's not offside. And I'm quite happy for everyone to disagree with me on that because they're actually right.
Yeah.
but
I know what you mean.
We've seen other goals. We've seen Liverpool goals chalked off for similar things. Didn't Mane have one that was like
in the derby? Was
derby,
it?
yeah. Like was almost identical to that. I think. Firmino had an armpit offside once, and I don't think that's in the spirit of the game. And if
I forgot about that. The armpit.
The armpit.
Was that Aston Villa? Was it?
I think it was. Yeah. The Villa armpit. So it's not for me all that. I don't want to see goals chalked off for that. But obviously, I was delighted when that one was chalked off because, to be honest with you, if I think they had scored that, I felt like PSG may have gone on and got another.
Yeah.
Would have been on the rack a little bit. With regards to Canate, if it comes down to the referee's decision, I think, and actually decent VAR work on the night, because I think if the referee gives a penalty and they decide to do a VAR check, they would have probably looked at that and said, there's not sufficient evidence to overturn his decision. But the fact that he hasn't given it and they've looked at it, they've come to the same conclusion. But all they've done really is uphold the referee's decision rather than trying to re-referee the game, which is fair enough.
And sometimes as well, I think you've these refs have to make the decision. I've seen one. Was it Michael Oliver last week with Mateta? Was it Liam Smith, the Millwall goalkeeper, who basically poleaxes him and he has to get 25 stitches in his ear? Didn't give a decision, did he?
No, VAR it's in.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's being used as a bit of a safety net too often, VAR, and the fact that it's called into action too readily means that it never really doesn't. It's always a part of the discussion and the discourse and the narrative and all that stuff, which we don't want. I know I don't. I don't know how you feel on VAR and all that stuff, but I just think it just gets talked about too much.
Yeah, I watched Roma last night while I was on shift, and they scored late on, and they had to wait for a VAR check to properly celebrate it. And I don't think anyone ever got into football celebrating television replays, going one way or the other. If you want that
your
type
back can't take it on the cup, can you? Having to get up twice to celebrate one goal,
mate. No. Well, I stand anyway. I would like a sit down occasionally in the cup. That crash barrier they've put in is quite handy. You can lean on that like you're at the bus stop or something.
You're right, though. You are right. It's the essence of it is celebratory, isn't it, rather than relief? Relief that you've been given a goal or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm not. Don't get me wrong. It has done some good things and it has helped Liverpool in certain circumstances and other teams. So I can see its merits. It's just not for me. But I think, am I right in saying PSG were unbeaten since November?
Yeah. 22 games. Yeah.
Only lost once at home all season, and that was Atletico Madrid.
So that's why they're fuming. You know what I mean? And who can blame them? So but that just adds a nice little bit of spice for the second leg, doesn't it? And there was obviously a bit of a intense atmosphere after those decisions went against them in Paris. But my word, there'll be an intense one in Anfield next week.
I did enjoy Van Dijk in the tunnel. I think he was shouting. Was it Lucas Campos, the sporting director? I think he was shouting to him, "It's not League One, bro." Like as if you just get all the decisions in League One. This is the Champions League now. It's not the way it goes.
Yeah.
Well, PSG have been very mouthy. I think they were mouthy before the game anyway, but even more so now. Like they're so confident, adamant they're going to go to Anfield and win. We've all seen this story before. This could easily bite them on the backside. Yeah.
But I can see why they might think that coming to Anfield with something to prove. They absolutely battered Liverpool, haven't they, really, in terms of the chances they've created and the shots that they've had on goal and stuff. But it'll be a different game. Liverpool won't be as poor as they were on the night. That's as poor as Liverpool have been, albeit with the caveat of them playing a really top side in PSG. But yeah, it'll be a different game. But it's on PSG to sort of. They've shaken off this reputation of them being sort of, megastars who don't run and don't want to work and all that sort of stuff. They've changed the makeup of the team and they look to be all the better for it. But this team still needs to prove that they can go somewhere away from home in Europe and really put in a statement performance. And, you know, that is the next task for them, I guess. And they'll have to do it to stay in the Champions League. So, yeah, I expect PSG to be a real threat in the next few years, given that the way they've changed that team in the last few years.
Very young team as well.
Yeah. But, you know, it's a big ask for them now to overturn that one at Anfield.
I felt like I could see a little bit of Barca influence within that team, you know, through the manager.
Yeah.
It just felt more like they looked. I know they had some very good individual players, but they looked like a more cohesive unit rather than just 11 highly paid superstars put together and told to go and win football matches. I think it will be a hard game for Liverpool, and they'll need to be right on it to do it, and so will the crowd. But if you put the two together, then you know they're in a good position. They've got a very good chance of going through.
I think what PSG have done really well in the last few years is almost just sort of utilise the area of the geography where they are. You know, it's a bit of a football on hotbed, isn't it? You know, Paris, and it's why the regions, and they've got the best players coming through and really polished them up to a very good standard. So you can see why they'd be interested in someone like Kanate, because he's from Paris and all that sort of stuff. So
Pretty bit gutted they didn't have him in the first place. The fact they ended up in the Red Bull group.
But it's a very different model to the one that you sort of had when he got taken over. Was it in the early 2010s? And he had like Ibrahimovic and Beckham went there for a bit, didn't he? And then obviously Neymar, Messi, Mbappe. Obviously Mbappe is from Paris, but it's a very different model, and I think they're going to be all the better for it for the next few years.
It was a great performance, I think, from a number of the substitutes really against PSG, and it comes at a time when probably too many of the starters looked a little bit leggy. Slots hinted today that he could rotate against Southampton purely because of the turnaround. But when you look at the impact Nunes makes, Elliott makes, Curtis Jones, these players are knocking at the door now. They needed that big moment and they stepped up, didn't they?
They did, yeah. And it was about time as well. I think that had to happen, really. And it has happened, which is great. So if those players had come on and had no impact on the game, then the decision not to play them regularly is justified. Yeah. But all three of them contributed in different ways. Elliott scored the crucial goal. Nunes has created that through being able to unsettle the centre-backs and play the decisive pass. And Curtis Jones brought control to the midfield that had been absent throughout. So they've all done the jobs on the night. And I do expect at least two of them, I think, to play on Saturday because of that turnaround. And you know, there is a couple of players in there who are first-team starters who I think are going to benefit from having the opportunity to have just a little bit of a rest. And they're going to be able to do that if the manager's got trust in the replacements. And after Tuesday, the chances are that he is.
Yeah, I think if you're playing Southampton at home, who are threatening to sort of match or even better or worse than, I guess, is Derby County's record of 2008, and you can't make changes, I think there's something wrong there with the squad that you've got at your disposal. You know, Liverpool are going to play 38 Premier League games, and this is probably the easiest one of the lot with respect to Southampton. So with PSG coming on Tuesday night, I mean, Slot was right to sort of focus Man today and speak of it being a final, and the idea of going 16 points clear of Arsenal ahead of them going to Manchester United on Sunday is right, and everyone should be, you know, certainly the players and the staff should be focusing on that. But he should also be able to rest and rotate, you know, safe in the knowledge that the players are good enough to do the business as well. So I don't think it's going to be 6 or 7 changes because he hasn't really shown any evidence of him doing that across the season. But certainly you could make a case for 2 or 3.
Gussie, you were at the AXA for Arne Slot's press conference this morning, and he did explain his reasoning behind the rotation. I thought it was quite interesting. He was saying, I don't do it with 20 or 25 players, I do it with 14 or 15. It's tough for the likes of Elliott, but it has served him really well. So what did you take from that press conference this morning? Yeah,
it was, wasn't it? The way he sort of explained it. He was talking about, you know, using Jota and Diaz, and he's talking about replacing them for Jones and Nunes, and they're different types of, they're not like-for-like replacements, are they, with Jones sort of playing off the left, but with a midfielder's profile, and Nunes a bit more of a out-and-out number 9 as opposed to Jota, who he called a 9.5, didn't he? Almost dropping into midfield when needed. Didn't really work for me on Wednesday night, Jota. I don't think he's near 100% from that injury that he had way back in October against Chelsea. So you're looking at it again with him as another injury-ravaged season. And I think there's a conversation to be had there now because he's been here since 2020. But yeah, I think, we're going to come into our teams in a minute, aren't we? But I don't see, I think Núñez has certainly done enough there to bring himself back in from the cold a little bit after the fallout from the Aston Villa game. So he could be one who could start. And Elliott, didn't have a great game against Plymouth on his last start, but don't think anyone did really, did he? I think we can just write that off and forget about it. But he scored now in his last 3 Champions League games, hasn't he? Lille, PSV, Lille, PSV, PSG. And, when he's being called upon, he's doing enough to sort of give his manager a little bit of a reminder, if nothing else.
Rich, I think Gakpo's still an injury doubt, but Arne Slot was still dismissive of the suggestion that Liverpool have been lucky with injuries this year compared to your Arsenals, your Man Cities. It is something that has been used against them, I think, by quite a few pundits, but Liverpool had 13 players out this time last year. It's just how football goes sometimes.
I think if you're going to win the league, you always need a little bit of fortune in the treatment room. And Liverpool have had injuries like any other team, but they've been able to handle it, and maybe some of them haven't been as critical as necessary. Alisson had games out. We brought another goalkeeper in who's performed well. We, replacing who we're talking about as the greatest goalkeeper in the world at the moment. Yeah. So they've managed that. We've been critical of some of Liverpool's forwards at certain points this season, but he's been able to rotate them and still get results and goals from his forwards. So the situation's been managed well. Injuries have not been as dire as they have been in, a few seasons gone by. I mean, we had no centre-backs one year. You know what I mean? We're playing kids and random Turkish centre-backs we've got on loan and stuff like that, you know what I mean?
I think there was like 17 different centre-back partnerships that season.
That's right. I mean, that's...
You were going to be the 18th.
Yeah. Brought me boots every week.
Yeah, I didn't get the call. It's hardly surprising. But, so there's been greater stability there. Not quite as much chopping and changing at the back. He has had to make changes, obviously, with Gomez getting injured.
Well, Canate was out for a month, weren't he? And sort of made sure that he was back as soon as Gomez gets injured, because he sort of recognised that we're a bit short here, so we put himself through the pain barrier. But yeah, no, you're right. Trent's been injured, Conor Bradley's been in and out.
But of course, when you're winning, people aren't injured, are they? You know what I mean? When you're losing, you got lots of injuries. Tottenham have got a lot of injuries, haven't they? All the time.
Yeah.
Why that is.
It's a self-fulfilling thing as well. I do think with Arsenal they have sort of hammed up the level of their injuries at certain points. And once you start letting that become a bit of a narrative, it becomes a little bit easier, doesn't it, to justify a little bit of a drop-off. Whereas Liverpool last season in particular, when they had, like you say there, they went into the League Cup final without 11 first-team players. Gravenberch gets injured. Endo comes out of Wembley on crutches. And Liverpool still win the cup final. They just, if you try and limit it becoming a bit of a storyline, you give yourself more of a chance, I find.
I still find I think it's Arsenal's own fault. If they signed a centre forward in January, last summer, the January before that, the summer before that, they're not in this situation. You've looked at their squad, and that is what they've been lacking for these 2-3 years when they've been going up against Man City, when they've been going up against Liverpool. If they had the player the squad needed, you're not crying that Saka's out, you're not crying that Martinelli's out. Like Liverpool's situation there was when every single centre-back was out, and they went and got 2 dodgy ones, turned to the academy, made it work.
Dodgy ones.
But Arsenal just had a hole and thought, we'll just ignore it and hope everything works out. And granted, they got 7 goals midweek. But yeah, they could go 16 points behind Liverpool tomorrow just because they play on Sunday, Liverpool play Saturday. Yeah. It's not really a title race at the moment. It's very odd.
Do you think, just to both of you, do you think Arsenal will get a result at United the weekend?
1 minute I'm thinking one way, the next I'm thinking the other. Because United are woeful, but United raced the game against the big teams.
Yeah, that is true.
Oh, well, they had a morale boost in 1-1 draw with Real Sociedad last night, so the tails will be up.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about United because it's not a United pod, but they are.
We seem to do it every week.
They are.
It's fine.
Oh, that's okay then. They are absolutely dreadful. I can't believe how bad they are actually. And yeah, Arsenal have sort of. You can see they've lost their momentum. They've probably lost a bit of the will because it is when a team gets as far ahead as Liverpool have. It is demoralising.
Especially if Liverpool win Saturday and they're looking up to 16 points.
Yeah, it's like, why are we bothering? We've been there with Man City and other teams in the past. You know, seen it all from the other side of the fence. But Arsenal should be going there to get a result, I think. I mean, lots of teams have gone to Old Trafford and won this year. Don't see any reason why a good Arsenal side couldn't.
They'll certainly be confident as well after 7 goals against PSV.
Yeah, there is that. That might change their mentality generally, mightn't it? After, squeezing by Leicester with Mikel Merino's late double and then struggling to, getting beat by West Ham and then struggling to break down Forest. I still think they'll have the same issues for me. I think beating PSV won't sort of change what they're able to do in the Premier League because I just think they've just got no one in terms of who you're relying on there for the goals.
I don't even know.
No, I mean, they're playing Mikel Merino up front, aren't they? And for whatever reason, Mikel Arteta doesn't fancy Sterling through the middle. He's played there earlier in his career. And yeah, it's a tough one, that, because United are awful, like we say. But then they have got recent evidence of picking it up against better teams. They obviously did really well against Liverpool and Anfield, and then they knocked Arsenal off the cup, didn't they, at the Emirates? So, yeah.
Incidentally, I think Liverpool's draw with United was probably one of the worst results of the season.
Yeah.
Obviously, they had a game plan, and we weren't able to counteract that. It was a pretty frustrating day, that. And then it's not. Hopefully, it won't really matter in the at the end of the season. On a lovely summer's day in May, or sorry, May is in spring, so no one picked me up on that. But that if you look at how United have been playing, that was a bad result for Liverpool.
Before we pick teams and do score predictions, we'll go through some of the questions. We'll start with the one as promised that was in my DMs from Morton. It goes, "Hi guys, long time listener from Northern Norway. How come none of you have mentioned Jayden Danns as a serious contender for that striker role next season? He's young and upcoming. He's gained body mass. He's a local lad. He's looking really promising. Could he be an option next year, or is it a bit too early?"
Is this suggesting that he could be the main man for Liverpool? Because I don't think that could be the case. He's got a lot to learn before he's even in the conversation with that. I think Liverpool are going to be in the market for a real top centre forward in the summer. I think we are now sort of into the final months of Darwin Núñez's time. I believe there's still question marks over Diogo Jota in terms of can he do it for a full season. So Liverpool are going to need a striker, and I don't think it's going to be Jayden Danns. With respect, he's not going to be leading the line for Liverpool at the start of next season. He could make himself a player, if he has a really good second half of the season on loan. But has he even started?
He's injured at the moment. There were suggestions, I think, that he might be out for the season, but I think they've been dismissed by the Sunderland end.
Yeah, because I know he stayed back at Liverpool to carry on his rehabilitation.
But the playoff spot space, it's fine. They're like 10 points clear of one, 10 points behind the other. They're going to be in the playoffs. Yeah. You just get him back for that semi-final, final, get him a few games beforehand, and he could have a big impact there.
Yeah, I mean, even if he's fit tomorrow for Sunderland and he starts banging them in at a rate of knots in the Championship, he's making a step up to be Liverpool's main man is night and day, isn't it? So, he might have a career, but talking about him as being the sort of the answer to the problems at number 9 is too premature for me.
So hypothetically, Rich, if you went and spent 100 million, 150 million on Alexander Isak, he could be the caveat of that. He could be a backup striker if you say you're fed up with Jota's injury issues. But Dan's missed the first half of the season with a back injury. He's out now with another back injury. Still so young. There's a player there, but we're not going to see what he's really about for another 2-3 years.
Yeah, and not playing is obviously not helping his cause, is it? Whether it's in the Liverpool first team or somewhere else. At the same time, while he's not playing, Lewis Kumas is doing well in the Championship. So there are other names in the mix as well for a potential backup. If Liverpool were to sign Isak, which I'd very much like to see happen, by the way, you've got a serious strike force again. Liverpool, they're champions elect. They're doing well in the Champions League. They're once again one of the main forces in Europe. it's an extremely difficult team to get into. Good players are going to leave the club, you know. So it is going to be hard for the likes of Dan's. And you know, players have broken through before, your Fowlers, your Owens. Great players, truly great Liverpool players. But I would suggest that the overall standard is higher now than it was then.
I think you just pointed out as well, when was the last time a striker broke through and stayed in the team?
It's very difficult, very difficult. But that doesn't mean that he won't get a chance at Liverpool, and it also doesn't mean that they're not going to have a good career in football.
I'd just go back to Dan. We've seen him get a little bit of a run out, didn't we, at PSV, and I think he struggled that night against bigger, stronger, more experienced defenders. So, yeah, still some way to go, yeah.
Julian Baxendale says, are we feeling more or less confident of going through in the Champions League than when we were when the draw was made?
More?
You're feeling more confident? PSG's not scared you a little bit? I know.
No, I mean,
Richard's probably panicking.
The top side, they really are. We spoke at length about how they are, but, you know, well, what was it? 22 games unbeaten, and you can see why they've done that, because they were electric at times, but Liverpool held in, come away with a win, and it's going to be a different game at Anfield, isn't it? And like I say, if that was a big question of Liverpool that they've come through, the flip side is, can PSG handle the reverse? You know, have this younger team got the stomach for a big night away from home in Europe? We're going to find out, I suppose.
Bongo O'Malley says basically a similar thing. Do you have any words to reassure me? And I think Gorsty's just delivered that. Are you going to crush it?
Sorry, what was his name?
Liverpool at Anfield with a first leg lead. That should reassure anyone, really.
His name's Bongo O'Malley.
Bongo, if you're listening.
Bongo O'Malley.
It's look, see, he's got O'Malley, but there's O just in the middle there. I'm not stuttering.
Bongo O'Malley.
Bongo
Bongo O'Malley. Yeah,
Bongo,
this is important.
You've messed us up here. You've just put too many O's in your name.
Too many O's. I've got a few T's, but this is unbelievable. So, okay.
Yeah, reassuring words.
Bongo, if you're watching, PSG were better than I thought they were, but we've come out of there with a 1-0 win. I think we can do it on Tuesday.
Well, that's more positive than I was
Sleep
expecting.
well.
You can tell we're not used to having someone who isn't Ian Doyle here crushing everything.
I
know. Next one, LFC SG. Would you start Endo tomorrow? I know we'll get to our teams in a bit, but just touch on that.
Yeah, he's certainly got a claim, hasn't he? I think maybe his qualities are not particularly suited to opening up a team who are in the relegation zone. You know, he's not a naturally creative sort of midfielder, is he? So I think that might count against them. But, you know, he was brilliant when he came on Wednesday night, wasn't he? You know, just typical Endo. And I think that role that he's got, he might not particularly like it, but I think he's really making a niche for himself in terms of just coming off the bench, getting stuck in and seeing things over the line. And I'll always maintain, I don't know why he didn't do that in the Merseyside derby.
Barry McLaughlin said if Isaac isn't happening, it's a bit of a leap to assume that it might be, could Alexis McAllister entice Alvarez to come to Liverpool in the summer? I'm guessing this is based off the fact that he scored an absolute worldie in midweek. He's a player I'd like to see at Liverpool, but it'd be a stretch for him to come back to Premier League after, one season at Atletico Madrid?
Yeah, I don't see that happening. So, no.
We just missed that one straight away.
Broke the bank for him, didn't he? Paid, was it
like 80, 90 minutes, something ridiculous like that. Another question from Barry. Out of these players, who do you think is least likely to be at the club next season? Endo, Elliott, Tsimikas, Nunes, Chiesa and Diaz. We've had this debate in press rooms up and down around the country, haven't we? That individually you could say any of them could depart. But then when you total them all up, Gorsty, it seems a bit mad to think it could be seven players out, seven players in.
I just don't see a world where the turnover is massively high. And obviously Slot will want to get to work a bit more in the transfer market and reshape it into his own squad. But I just can't see it where, you know, sort of eight and nines are leaving. Out of those players, maybe Endo.
To go.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables, isn't there? I mean, look at Chiesa and you'd say, oh yeah, well he's barely kicked the ball, so he'll go. But what if Salah goes? Doesn't sign the contract yet. So all of a sudden you could have a different dynamic there. So it's quite hard. I do think Nunes will go, and I'm not too sure on Endo actually. So and I think Elliott will probably go as well. To be honest with you, personally, just because I think he'll want more regular game time, which is fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, we know Slot loves Endo's mentality, and he's spoken about it loads, but he hasn't really backed that up with starts, as he hasn't started in the Premier League. There was interest last summer from Marseille. I don't think we'd know about that if it hadn't got down the line to a certain extent. So yeah, I mean, I can see Núñez leaving as well, but out of those players, I think probably Endo is the one who might be waved away with a massive pat on the back.
I don't think we've got any more questions. I think it's more comments now going. Liverpool need to score twice to get past PSG. Never rely on United or Everton to ever do us a favour. Would United be doing Liverpool a favour when it's potentially going to be 16 points before Arsenal even kick off? I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, if United get anything against Arsenal, yeah. I mean, so it goes to 16, and then if United can get a draw, that's, yeah. You need Liverpool to lose 5 of the final 9 games. Not really happening, that is it?
And there's just people, I think, a little bit unhappy with how negative it was against PSG. Julian says they should have played 4 midfielders with Curtis Jones in the box. That's what you suggested, didn't you, in the predictor?
I did, yeah. They might have won 1-0.
It was how they finished, wasn't it, with the 4? We'll move on to teams now, because I'm going to predict that Gorsty is not going to go for a box midfield this time. It'll be a bit more adventurous against a struggling Southampton. We'll start with you, Gorsty. What are you thinking for the back 5?
Yeah, like I said, it's just a case of how many changes is he going to make. You can't really make one at right back. You don't want to touch the centre backs. I don't know. Do you put Quans at right back?
If you're going to do it in any game, this is the one.
Yeah.
But do you need to?
Do you know what? I'm going to go with it. I'm going to Quans at right back, Konate, Van Dijk, and Tsimikas. Yeah.
What do you think,
3
Rich?
fullbacks.
I'm not going to be quite as outrageous as Paul, but we're not a million miles away. I'm going to make one change, so I'm going to keep the centre backs as they are. I think you need to do that. I'm going to keep Trent in, but going to give old Robbo a rest there at left back. I had a busy night the other night, so and the difference between obviously him and Trent is there's no Conor Bradley on the other side, so we've got a natural replacement for Robbo, which can afford him a rest. So I think we can bring Tsimikas in at left back.
Sticking with you, Rich, for the midfield, the starting 3 were quite the deeper 2 were quite leggy against PSG. It would be a good opportunity to change it. Are you going to?
Yes, I am. I think Gravenberch, who's been one of the best players of the season, is just. I think the season's starting to catch up with him a little bit, and I think he would benefit from a rest. So he's coming out. I wrote this team out this morning on my pad. I made the
Forgot that Rich Garnett's the pad for picking his team.
T-line pad. It's been full for about 6 months. I just keep turning pages and finding new bits to write in. So I don't know if the Reach stationary monitor is listening, but I do need a new shorthand pad.
You have to go and get one. There's at least somewhere.
You can show me after this pod, Theo. But yeah, I had Szoboszlai, McAllister, and Jones down as my 3 in the middle, but since that was written, since the ink dried, I've changed my mind actually, and I think Southampton have won 2 games this season in the Premier League, so I think we can afford to make another change. I'm going to bring Endo in, and I give McAllister a rest as well, if nothing, just to stop him from siving around the floor injured or looking injured after he gets whacked by someone as he seems to do in every single game he plays. So just give that body a rest, because we're definitely going to need him, one of Liverpool's most influential players. We're definitely going to need him, and it's at the peak of his powers on Tuesday. So it's not a midfield I would normally pick, but I think we can afford to do it. So I'm going to have Endo, Szoboszlai, and Jones.
What do you think, Gusty?
Yeah, this is obviously what we'd pick, so I don't think Slot is going to do this, but I'm going to start Endo with Jones and Harvey Elliott as the number 10.
Was that the trio? No, Endo was centre-back, wasn't he, when they were at Southampton in the League Cup?
Yeah.
But the fact they've got that victory with the change side, it probably gives you a bit more confidence to give Elliott a start. And Jones deserves one, because he was great when he came on.
Yeah.
We'll stick with you for the attack. Núñez is another player who's knocking at the door.
Yeah, I'll give Núñez the nod. Obviously, Salah keeps his place, and then it's going to be Diaz, because it doesn't sound as though Gakpo is close, does it? He said he was going to see if he can train today, but if there's any doubts, I'd
save him for the final. Or PSG, whichever one he's ready for.
One of the 3 finals. Yeah, so I'll go with Diaz, Núñez, and Salah.
What about you, Rich? Would you be tempted to have Núñez and Jota, or same 3?
No, I'm going to go with the same, to be honest with you. Could do mixing it up a little bit. Salah's obviously going to play, because he always plays. And the options are a little bit limited on the left. You could play Jota there, I suppose, but I think I'd rather keep Diaz there, So to get at that Southampton defence and bring Nunes in for this one and see what he can do for an hour.
And I suppose it's different in terms of the quality of fullback on show. The Southampton options aren't as quick as Hakimi and Mendes, was it? Not going to get many quicker fullbacks up against Liverpool this season. We'll move on to predictions now. So start with you, Rich. How confident are you feeling?
Oh, feeling quite confident. Probably even more confident by the time we kick off. After we've been to Dale Street for an hour or so.
Less confident at half time.
Liverpool should get this job done. There is always the sort of the Champions League hangover thing, isn't there? So I don't think it'll be an annihilation, but I still fancy them for a 3-0 win.
You look at Southampton's recent results: lost 4-0 to Chelsea, lost 4-0 to Brighton, 3-1 to Bournemouth. There's a 3-1 to Newcastle in there as well. They ship a lot of goals.
They do, yeah. I was going to say 3-0 myself, actually. Feels like 2-0 is a bit of a standard regulation Liverpool result this season, but I think Liverpool have got it in them to step up and get another one. So I'll go 3-0 myself.
Probably worth adding as well, if he does change the side and there's a few players coming in with a point to prove, if they do get a couple of goals up, they'll be hungry for more, won't they? So that could affect the scoreline.
I'm going to go for 4-0. I fancy a confident one. It's about time Liverpool really put a side to the sword. I think that's all we've got time for, unless we've got any brilliant questions that come in right at the end. No, just the same normal comments. So we'll call that a day. That's all we've got time for. Thanks for tuning in and all your questions. Thanks to Gorsty and Rich for joining me. Let us know in the comments if you want Rich back on another podcast or if you're missing Doyley and Joe.
You haven't got the budget for them.
Blown it.
I'll be back tomorrow for the post-match podcast after Southampton, so keep an eye out for that. And then we'll obviously be back on Monday to talk Southampton again and look forward to PSG. With any luck, we'll have a special guest. Not that Rich wasn't special, of course. Rich was very special.
Even more special guest.
But even more special.
My wife.
maybe. Exclusive here. Producer Ian's got to get that deal over the line. But yeah, stay tuned for that. And until next time, thanks and goodbye.